for joining us for another info session as we continue to work in the COVID-19 world. So want to encourage you all to toggle on your sound, and if you have sound and video, if you can turn both of those on, we'd love for you to join us with both. And really want this to be an interactive experience for all of us as we go through the material today. So it's pretty open discussion forum this. We're just gonna be sharing a few, so we canvassed our El Futuro clinicians and had them share some of their tips for maintaining work-life balance and also maintaining boundaries with clients as we have more connectivity and more ways for them to reach out to us. And then as we go through these and I share them with you all, I'm just going to invite everyone to share your experiences and your tips and your tricks as we're getting through this difficult time together. So with that, going to start off with our usual poll. Just want to get an idea of where folks are located. So Sophia will publish a poll for us real quick. I think we can go ahead and publish probably. So we got the mountain folks and the triangle folks. So great to see you all here. Thank you all for filling that out. And then we have another one for what your work context looks like.
Is Francis in here?
So that was my partner doing expressive arts therapy over telehealth, which is appropriate for the call today, showing our cat to one of her clients, Francis, who is joining us right there on the futon. All right, so we got a lot of people from nonprofits and then some folks from health clinics and school-based services. Excellent. So wanted to start by sharing some of these. We've kind of broken them down into different areas. So one of the general areas that our clinicians came up with is this idea of leaving the office when working from home. You all are now looking at my office here. I have a door. It sometimes is breached, as you just saw. But it is helpful. One of the things that folks talked about is creating an end of the workday ritual, like going for a walk, listening to music, dancing it out even, to create mental space to separate and process things. I know I've definitely incorporated that. We, my partner and I were on the Fitbits, and so we were like, we got to get our 10,000 every day, no matter what. So that's really helpful to create that space away from looking at the screen and leaving this workspace, which now is our home space as well. And this idea I really liked: close, in between quotes, your door at the end of the day by putting away your work materials, and try to minimize the amount of work communications you receive at non-work times on devices such as your phone. This can be particularly tough, if we've got email coming in, calendar notifications, things like that. And really, as these domains have bleeded into each other, the weekend maybe takes on less of a meaning than the week, but I think it's been really important for me personally, at least, to keep these boundaries as best as possible. And then when I say, okay, I'm done for the day, I've clocked out, that's it, and I'm just watching TV shows or cooking dinner and relaxing. I wonder for you all, have any of these issues come up, or how have you managed maintaining this routine or this balance between having the workspace be part of your home life and then maintaining both a life within your job and then outside of your job?
This is Kenny. I'm with Vecinos in Western North Carolina. And technology, cell phones and things like that have been a blessing and a curse at this time. Like, it's really great to be able to, still see our friends and family via video, but at the same time, like, my email never turns off. Like, it's connected to my personal phone, and so it's like constantly going. And so I try to tell myself, don't check it, but I'll like be awake at like 11 p.m. and just like checking my work email. I try not to do that. I know it's not healthy.
Yeah, I totally share that, Kenny. And I mean, I wonder if it's I'm always like, oh, I could turn the notifications feature off, but then I'm like, I'm going to forget to set that back on, and then I'll miss things the next day. And I wonder, I don't know, some things that I think some folks have found helpful at El Futuro is just setting clear boundaries. Like, you can send me emails, but I will not answer emails past a certain time of the day or certain days of the week. And just making those boundaries pretty clear for folks can be helpful too. What about other folks? This intrusion of technology into our lives as we switch on and off from work.
I'm wondering.
Sorry.
Go ahead. We'll go with Valerie first and then Maxine.
Hey, this is Valerie. I work at Compass Center in Orange County. We are a domestic violence serving agency. I'm sorry, I don't have a video on. I'm eating my lunch.
No worries, you can eat your lunch. We won't judge you.
And so I'm wondering if other folks in their positions are working in any kind of like an on-call sort of position. Myself, I'm on call every other Monday and then a couple of weekends a month, or a couple of weekends every couple of weeks. And so not only, am I accessible after work hours, but then I also support staff who are sometimes on call. And so I have folks contacting me, even when I'm not on call for support. And that's been a challenge. And I also had another family friend reach out to me, with a domestic violence situation going on last night. And so I'm just wondering if other folks are struggling with that. I mean, it's a normal nature of our work, but it feels exacerbated during this time.
And Jenny, I wonder if you can share what your experience, since you all with 30th Judicial Alliance also deal with domestic violence and might experience similar situations.
Yes, I know it is very overwhelming because you have to deal with your own situation, and then you have to be cool and calm in order to help the clients. So what we are doing with my coworker is checking with each other every day. And I think that's is helping me a lot, because I realize that I'm not alone in this. And we start collaboration. It has been really, really important. Because it's not easy to deal with your private personal life and then help other people and in an effective way. So I think for me, that's what has been helping, like the mutual collaboration with my coworkers. Like, that has been very, very important.
Thank you, Jenny. And Valerie, I'm wondering, I don't know, like you were saying that with being on call, you're having to get contacted more by maybe some of your coworkers. Like, do you think something like that would be helpful, or do you feel like you need more time separating or away from folks?
I mean, it does help. And, our DV staff meets weekly in like a formal way to talk through cases and to get support. And then I also, we rely on each other sort of informally throughout the week. So it's like we do that already, and yet it still kind of feels, I think, I'm used to it. I've done this work for years now. But the fact that everything is taking place at home, and I live in a very small home in Carborough. So my desk is my office, and my office is my bedroom. And so It's really challenging. Yeah.
Yeah.
One, the other thing that I've been doing that is helping me is mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm taking these, I took these classes on mindfulness, and I think that's been really, really helpful for me because I'm at home. You know, I have two little kids. I'm homeschooling. I'm doing schoolwork because I'm getting my MSW. So it's like 1,000 things at the same time.
Yeah.
But mindfulness has really, really helped me. Like apart from the support of my family and my coworkers, like, I think that's a good tool to have.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. It's helpful just to know that you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, and that's really the intention of a large portion of why we're having these meetings. But I think your point is excellent, Jenny. Like, I mean, I'm just thinking about when I teach folks mindfulness, like taking a walk, you can do a mindful walk, and that can be kind of a physical break, but also a very important mental break, and being present in that moment when you're walking. And that might give you that mental separation from the physical space that sometimes it's hard to get out of. Maxine, I wonder if we can bring you back into the conversation. You sent a chat as well.
Yeah, if you didn't see the chat, if you enter your national provider ID,
Mm-hmm.
if you have one, you can get Headspace for free. I have done it. I haven't been using it. I'm going to be honest. And one issue I was going to bring up, which you might have just heard, is my dog's barking while I'm working. Like if I'm trying to so I work with kids, school-based typically. But if I'm trying to do mindfulness activities with kids, a lot of my kids have experienced trauma, and my dog starts barking, and it's not great. So I have actually started taking my dogs to daycare once a week, and I try to fill that day. That day is like at least 8 back-to-back appointments, which is a little crazy, but it's been helpful, but expensive. Another thing I've done, I've sort of had to start working some on the weekend because of the nature of my job. I need the parents to be there with the kids most of the time, unless it's older kids, but I mostly work with the younger ones. So in order to sort of balance that, I started doing this crazy thing where I won't do notes in the evenings. I wake up at 4 a.m. on Monday morning and do my notes, so that I don't have to work in the evening at all, and I barely have to work on the weekend.
Love that, and I echo that. I signed up for Headspace, haven't used it. But I'm like you, Maxine. I can't work at night, like after 8 or so. Like, it's just my brain doesn't work, and it's just better for me to use that time in the evening to relax. And then I'm a morning person, I guess, so it works for me to get up in the morning and get those the things that I really can't bring myself to do at the end. Sophia says, we commend you for waking up at 4 a.m. I must say I don't go quite as far as 4 a.m., but that's
It's just one day a week, just one day a week. But I'm even more extreme. I won't work past 5:30. So that's my
awesome.
limit that I've set, because before I was working until 3 o'clock the school day, and then I would do my notes. So
I think that's important. It's important to try to set those boundaries and have those open conversations if you're, I guess, lucky enough with your employers to be able to have that. But I think that's really a key thing. And we actually have a recommendation from the El Futuro clinicians about that. Other thoughts on these points from folks on the call before maybe we move on to another general topic? Okay.
I guess I have a question.
Yeah.
Since I did bring up my dog's barking, has anyone had any ways that they have had success dealing with disruptions, whether it's kids, dogs, partners, anything like that?
No, sorry, I failed to address that point. What do folks think? Go ahead, Kenny.
I had to separate myself and create like a little office within my house. So we took our guest bedroom and turned it into my office and that helped minimize the distractions of like my partner walking by or like having, a setup and like my dog and the cat coming in. I know that might not be the best recommendation for a barking dog, but exercise, I guess.
We've been using one of the sound machines. I don't have a dog, but just for other people in the house and other privacy and things like that, turning on one of those like white noise machines. I don't know if that would drown out a dog if the dog were in another room.
Thank you, Kenny and Linda. Maxine, one thing I was talking about, I guess it depends on your dog and your dog's bark and the consistency with which he barks, but sometimes maybe, do you think it'd be possible to, as a mindfulness technique, like using it like, I know you hear my dog now, I want you to try to focus on that and let it go and not attach to that thought, kind of in the vein of mindfulness. And just kind of teaching folks like, that's kind of like you're modeling, like dealing with the times. Like, I'm sorry that we have this going on right now. It's just what we have to deal with. And I know that we can get through it together. But I don't know if you've got a really high pitched dog that doesn't ever stop, that might be impossible. Maybe saw some other folks maybe unmuting, Genta or Scott. Maybe I saw things. All right. Well, thank you all. We will move on to the next set of topics, which is maintaining boundaries with increased availability. This is something that has come up plenty for me personally in my clinical work. So some of the things that folks recommended were be firm with boundaries with clients. This is not necessarily a time for you to become extra available. I think we've talked about this in past info sessions. One thing I've found helpful is being able to text with clients, just in terms of arranging sessions. And like I had one client, he became homeless and he was still going to work and things like that. And just being able to send a text and say, because he was on my mind, and I was like, hey, man, I'm really thinking about you. I'm worried about you, and just want to let you know that we're going to try to help you as best we can. And I think it meant a lot to him. At the same time, on the flip side, I think there's been a lot of folks that maybe have reached out to me on the weekends and things like that. And I don't know, like, is this an emergency? Do I respond? Like, it can put you in quite an uncomfortable position. Have any of you all experienced anything like that since the COVID world started?
Do you have a separate work cell phone, or is it all coming through onto your personal cell?
We at El Futuro set up Google phone numbers for all of our clinicians.
Mm-hmm.
So it might as well be my personal phone.
Right. And I guess, I'm not familiar with Google numbers. Is there a way to turn off the notifications?
Yes, there is. You can lock it to your calendar. And I had to learn that one real quick because I also have the Google phone number. And if you set your work schedule in whatever calendar it's connected to via Google, you won't get notifications outside of those hours. It'll still send you an email, but it doesn't come through straight to your phone.
So could there be a way to like set an away message the same way that you would on your email? Because, that's what we do, especially as individual staff members, as we're away for our email, is letting them know, sort of setting those expectations that we're not available. But that if it's an emergency, like providing our hotline number, and I guess for you, providing, maybe a list of resources, but just being really explicit with folks when they do contact you through the cell phone, saying, that these are your hours, and that if it is an emergency, providing upfront what those resources are. Because I know there's a couple of staff members, particularly our Latinx service provider, who has clients who connect with her over her work cell, and she turns it off. She does, and she turns it on in the morning, but she lets folks know that she does that, and lets folks know that they can contact the hotline, outside of those hours.
Thank you for that, Valerie. I think it's I think it's important. Yeah. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, when it's those emergency situations, there's not always something that you can do, or you don't need to be the person to respond to that. That's what the emergency services are at. And it can be perfectly okay to push folks in those directions. But sometimes I think as, providers, and this is our job, it can feel hard to set those boundaries. But I agree, if as long as you communicate that explicitly, and you stick to it, I think it can be done. So some folks suggested that setting these boundaries can be a way to set an example, or like modeling how they can set boundaries in their own personal life. And then I know that as we were ramping up or moving over to teletherapy at El Futuro, there was a lot of things that needed to get done. That was a huge overhaul. And I think a lot of people stepped up and, were willing to help and things like that. But I think some folks were also mindful that it might be difficult given, and, folks' personal situations at home, having kids and needing to deal with personal things as well as work stuff. And so feeling hopefully in your workplace supported to be able to say no to extra tasks, or at least say, I can't get it done right now. Is it okay if I get it done by this time? And kind of being compassionate with yourself. I know I struggle sometimes to be compassionate with myself. I tend to be harder on myself when I don't complete things, or I don't give like the best effort. But as I'm sure you all are experiencing, like Zoom fatigue is real, and sometimes it's hard to put your best effort forward because you just don't have the energy. But I don't know I wonder what folks have heard out there or seen out there from their employers or from your work environments about setting these boundaries, or if you've felt like modeling setting boundaries for your clients has been helpful for them too.
Well, I work part-time, and so what I was finding was that I would have a day where I have one meeting in the middle of the day, and like that's a day I really want to go out and play. So I've been trying to work with my coworkers to say, listen, I really don't want like one meeting this day and one meeting this day and one meeting this. I like to clump them, but then I have to negotiate with others' schedules as well. So I kind of lost on one of my attempts to create a boundary. But now that we've had the meetings on the day I really don't want for a few weeks in a row, I thought I would reapproach it again and say, listen, I've gone along with this day. It's not worked very well for me, but I've made it work. As we go on, how about we pick a different time and see if we can, again, free up that day for myself completely. The other was that because I'm part-time, I'm not checking email every day. And I miss some things sometimes. And my supervisor said, you need to check email every day. I'm like, no, I'm not going to check it every day. But then I did say, I will make an attempt to at least glance over and make sure I'm not missing anything important. And I've been able to do that. It's not a big thing, but I want to be able to set the boundary and go, no, today is not the day to check email, my day off. But I found a little compromise just to make sure I'm not missing anything super important.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a bit of give and take there with your job, Linda. It sounds like they've responded okay to that. So. You were muted just there.
Yeah, my supervisor is super busy, and we're not so much because our programs are canceled or changed the way we offer them. So I'm not sure she completely gets it, but I'm trying. And again, I was just thinking today, hey, it's been 3-4 weeks. We've had these Monday morning meetings that I really don't want. It's time to renegotiate the meeting time. So I'll see.
Yeah, it can be tough to stick your neck out, but I don't know. I feel like if the intentions are good and you're just open and honest with folks, hopefully they'll come along with you. But it can be scary to bring these things up again, like you've had to. How about other folks? Any issues or experiences setting boundaries with work or with clients?
I'll share a little bit. When we first started all of the transitioning at El Futuro into telehealth, we all like created Google Voice numbers, and mine just like automatically linked to my phone. And so I was getting everything like on my computer, but also through my phone. And then it was Easter Sunday, and I got a text from a client through the Google Voice, and it just like threw off my whole like frame of mind for the morning. And so part of kind of like negotiating different boundaries, I just decided to like kick Google Voice off my phone so that everything just comes through my computer now, because it was really hard to separate. And then like I ended up spending a good part of the day like concerned about the client, like given the text that they sent me, and that wasn't how I wanted to spend that day. So it was a good step for me, and I feel like it's created a good separation.
So Rachel, you've been able to just make calls and texts from your computer through Google
Yeah,
Voice?
so I have the like Google Voice set up on my computer, and it all like links up, and I can make calls. I can do the text all from my computer, and it doesn't have to go through my phone at all, which is nice.
I feel like you've mentioned this before. So Rachel's newly hired at El Futuro clinician. So I feel like you've mentioned this before. So do you download the application from Google onto your desktop?
Yeah, so it's all just like set up through my like Google account. So I even just like have a little like bookmark on my internet tab that's just like my Google Voice account, and then I pull it up, and it's just like its own little tab in my browser.
Yeah, I'd like to do that because texting in Spanish takes forever when your phone doesn't recognize words and things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lifesaver for me to just like not have to deal with my phone, being like my sole form of communication with clients. And that's definitely a place of privilege to have this computer where I can put everything and keep it away from me.
That's the thing, is like the phone is always here with you, and the computer just stays at that desk. It doesn't follow you around.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Any other thoughts before we move on? I think we have one more general topic area. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about the joys. I put it in quotes because it might be joys for some, it might be pains for others. This is one thing that I think we've been mentioning on all these calls. This is also something that our telehealth expert at El Futuro suggested, is taking breaks from the screen to move your body, especially in between sessions. I think more than ever, it becomes important to end your sessions at 50 minutes or so you can have those 10 minutes to step away, take a walk. I like to go out on the balcony here and just like breathe some fresh air. But because I know that when I've experienced it, when I finish a session and I go right into the next one, or someone yeah, whenever like I bleed into it and I see the next person pop into my waiting room, it's really stressful that I'm like, oh, I got to finish this session. And then when I finish the session, I have to admit the other person, I don't even have a chance to take a breather in between session. And that, especially when you have several sessions in a row, like 3 to 4 to 5, if you get to that fifth one and you got nothing left in the tank, or at least I got nothing left in the tank. So I think that's a really important one. Incorporating relaxation exercises into your client sessions, you'll benefit as well. I've actually found these, like I thought that they would be harder to do over video, but I've actually found that folks have really, at least my Latinx clients have really taken to like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, even like guided imagery or imaginal, or safe image visualizations. Those things work really well because they're basically shutting their eyes, and then it's like they're listening to a podcast or a YouTube video walking them through a meditation. And I find that that can be helpful. I think we'll benefit too, I would say, not just from doing the relaxation, but it takes up space in your session where you kind of go on autopilot and you guide them through something. And I feel like everyone can probably relate that there is something else going on, that we're not able to rely so much on human presence or nonverbals. And there's a lot of work that you're having to do when you're in front of the camera, in front of someone on a therapy session. And so going into something very structured and guided like this can give you a little break, I think, from the session. Also being creative, I'm curious to hear what folks have done to be creative in your sessions. I've shared that so there's like some fun games and things like that that I do for game-based CBT, which is a trauma EVT for child sexual abuse. And then sometimes it involves like going into character. So I'll like turn off my video and put on a wig or something. And then I'll be like, and here's so-and-so. And then I'll do the big reveal. And then I didn't put one on, but just imagine I did. But kids really get a kick out of that. So I'd be curious to see like if you've played games or anything like that. Charades has been a lot of fun on video. Using the clipboard thing to play some Pictionary or Hangman. So yeah, I just want to hear about you all. And this one might go without saying, but I think be kind to yourself. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. B+ effort is all we can give sometimes, and that's okay. And I feel like that can be hard. I feel like a lot of us are perfectionists a lot of the time. But sometimes you get to that fourth session and you just got to get through it, and that's okay. You're not doing someone a disservice by doing that. But what are your all thoughts on these points here? Taking breaks, incorporating relaxation, and being creative, and then maybe being kind to yourself.
I think it's important to prioritize those, especially like the breaks and the self-care, because we often like stress that, you know, our clients need us, or we're overworking ourselves to try to take care of our clients. But that's where the burnout comes from, you know. So if we're not doing these things and building it into our regular day or our regular routine, then we're doing ourselves and therefore the clients a disservice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's almost like the thing that we have to tell, this happens a lot with my Latino clients, the parents will be sacrificing and working really hard, and then they got nothing in the tank when they get to the end of the day and they get home from work. And I say, you know, taking care of yourself is a way of taking care of your family. So I think we can apply it to ourselves too. Other thoughts on any of these? Wondering about creative things you all have done. What's something that you've done in therapy that you never thought you'd do? Going once, going twice. All right. And then a few more points here. This is something that I would have benefited from, you know, having a system to let them know when you're not available or not. One of our clinicians set up a red, yellow, green system. So saying, you know, red, I'm with a client, yellow means come in only if you need me, green means come on in. I've definitely done this one, take a full lunch break, go outside, I talk to my partner, I cuddle with my cats. So I think that's really important. Then the last one I think goes without saying, always wear pants, very important. I don't know if anyone's had any Zoom faux pas. I'm sure you've seen them on the internet everywhere. But I feel like the one I had was, I mean, I guess you can't help it, right? But from the top up, I look okay. Sometimes I'll wear like workout pants or something like that. And I didn't realize until I was like, oh, I'm about to do progressive muscle relaxation with this client. I'm going to have to go from head to toe and show what's below the waist. And then I was like, well, I'm wearing shorts and I'm barefoot, so sorry, but let's go ahead and do this. But yeah, I'm curious if any of you all have any experiences with any of these.
I've had some funny experiences on my clients, and I work with elementary school age kids. I've had 2 calls that I can remember where they weren't wearing pants. I've had multiple times where they take me, the video call, into the bathroom with them. Things like that. It's been very amusing, but I always wear pants. I have had times where the angle is like looking straight at my chest, I've realized. So I've had to be way more mindful about the camera angle. Took me a while to notice that.
Yeah, the ones with kids are hilarious. I remember I had one like that where the kid wasn't wearing a shirt and he just kept the camera from here down, and I kept seeing little flashes of like his neckline. I was like, do you not have a shirt, man? He was like, nah. I was like, just take 5 minutes next time before you hit the OK button, put a shirt on. Like, come on, man. But yeah, thank you, Maxine. I think it's good, and I hope you all will forgive me for bringing in a bit of humor, but I think it's important to also share some of these funny experiences we've had. Other funny anecdotes? I'd love to hear some more.
I've really enjoyed getting to see all of my coworkers' pets as they've made sort of cameos in the picture, in the screens. And there was a couple of weeks ago, we were having a meeting, and one of my coworkers, she is notorious for leaving herself, like her microphone on when everyone else is muted. And like, there's just lots of stuff going on in the background. And we heard this huge boom, and then we just heard shit, fuck. So the whole meeting, you know, we'd all been talking over her, but everybody then kind of ceases and then was like, we should check on her, right? Like the video was off. We had no idea what had happened.
Oh no.
She dropped something on her toe. So yeah. So it's been amusing just interacting with my coworkers and getting to know them in unique ways.
Yeah, most definitely.
I just thought of one creative thing that I just remembered. Now that I'm seeing clients' homes, I'll do like a scavenger hunt of like, show me something that brings back a happy memory or things like that. Have them go around and show me different things that are meaningful to them. That's been really fun and a great way to get to know them in a very different way than I usually would.
Yeah, I think that's a really great one there. And I think that's just been something that I've enjoyed, like getting to know people's like homes and the things that they value. It's just a different level of closeness. I'm going to put him on the spot, but so Jim on the call, he is part of our learning cohort and I'm his mentor. And so we have these conversations. I know Jim's not my patient, but we were meeting and he had this beautiful artwork behind and it's the lid of a harpsichord that has this painting on it. And it's just really cool to see those little touches from, you know, people's lives.
Another thing that I think has been a joy is I get to work with families a lot more, not just the individual client. So instead of trying to be like, can you go somewhere else because I want to talk to you privately, I find ways to work in the family, because otherwise it's just really awkward. But
Mm-hmm.
it's been really helpful, especially since I work with kids. But I think for anyone that could be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've had one client who's very severely depressed. It's a father, and the kids are always like running around, they're lively, and they'll be around in the call, and I'll just kind of lean on them and be like, hey, are you guys gonna help dad get up out of bed at a regular time? And they'll be like, yeah, 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 and they get into it. And I feel like that's just a dynamic that you wouldn't otherwise get to have in a regular therapy session. Other folks, wondering if folks have used any like kind of creative or maybe arts over video to work with clients.
I let again, I mean, I work with crisis clients, so this isn't applicable for me, but one thing that we've done in a staff meeting that it sounds like maybe you all could think about if it's appropriate with clients is I had our coworkers during staff meeting take time to share their screens and use the whiteboard function on Zoom to have them draw their self-portraits of themselves in quarantine. So draw sort of like what they look like, what they've been wearing, what's around them, you know, where is their desk? Are they sitting on their couch? You know, are they surrounded by papers? Is their cat on their lap? And so it was really fun to see how folks see themselves and how similar it was. And so that was a really creative and fun way to get to know folks.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Valerie. We've used that in our team meetings. I think we did it for clinical supervision, and so they put a timeline of like the months that have happened since COVID, and then it was like draw a line with your own color about like where your mood has been, and then all these lines were just like all over the place. And it was really, I guess cathartic to see that we're not alone in having these sharp ups and downs. Cool. Well, those were all the things we had. I mean, is there anything else that we haven't covered, or any experiences that you would like to share that we haven't gotten to today? Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I don't know how relevant this is. I don't actually have active clients, but I have a close relationship with a 15-year-old Latino boy who was a student at Northern High School. And he's just recently gotten hooked up with a therapist, but he's pretty heavily resistant to it. He speaks very little English, and I speak very little Spanish, but one of my other colleagues who's bilingual, we have these three-way phone conversations with him, just trying to reinforce how important it is that he engage with this therapist and try to kind of help him not to be at war with his mom, which is more often than not the case. It's just been kind of an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing that you're able to create that connection with him, despite having to go through an interpreter. And I think, from learning about the work that you do, Jim, like maintaining those connections with your clients has been really important. And they really value that. I know you said that it can be tough, not having it in person, but it's cool to see you still continuing to have that with them.
Well, hearing you all talk makes me grateful that I don't have to deal with all the issues that you're dealing with.
Yeah. Any final? Go ahead, Linda.
I just was curious how people are dealing with privacy issues, because of course Zoom doesn't guarantee that there's no one in the room listening or no one in the house on either end. And so, I mean, basically, I think, my families, I do groups of parents, and And, you know, everyone kind of knows that that's a possibility, and kids do walk into the room and then they leave, and then, you know, the parents try to hustle them out, and you know, there's and everyone's been very forgiving, but if there was something more serious coming up and we needed more privacy, you know, it's definitely more challenging on both ends. Anyone found any creative solutions there?
So we at Compass Center of all, we have 10 like licensed Zoom accounts that we're using for client interactions. So the licensed accounts that you pay for are HIPAA compliant. And so our support group coordinators have been holding groups, both in Spanish and in English online. And so they work to develop sort of a participation agreement and confidentiality agreement that they went over with clients, both individually before they agreed to participate in the groups. And then they also reiterate that at the beginning of each group before they begin. And I believe, I've not been directly involved, but I believe that it's their protocol that if they do see another person on the screen, like that if they come behind them on camera, that the host then is going to kick that person out, because not only because they're concerned about that person seeing the other participants, and seeing them participating in that call. And of course we have, you know, safety concerns around that. And I think that has happened at least twice. You know, and one time I think that it was somebody's family member who was helping them with tech issues. And so they just had walked around the camera. And so they just had a discussion afterwards about, you know, turning off their camera when that happens, making sure that, you know, that the person can't see any of the other participants. So really assuming best intentions, but still reiterating that expectation. And that person was able to rejoin on the next call, the next meeting time.
And then how about privacy within your own family when you're online?
So I think, so for our own advocates, it's been challenging. We have a couple of folks who, you know, have families at home. And so I think that they've tried to isolate within their own rooms throughout the workday, doing the best that they can. I know that for those folks who've hosted groups, they've done it in a separate room. You know, and especially that's important if they're taking notes, that they're shredding at the end of the day. They're not leaving any notebooks around that have, you know, written client confidence or client information and things like that. I live alone, so it's less of a concern. My cat is not going to tell anyone. So, but yeah, it's a challenge for sure.
Thank you, Valerie. And I think, Linda, one thing that's come up for a lot of folks that are, and something that I've found successful, is for folks to go out into the car, if that's possible. If there aren't any rooms, that's often the most private place they can find. I mean, still the kids might run up to the car and things like that, but if it's not a possibility in the home, sometimes that's the best option.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other things that we haven't mentioned, we got about 10 minutes.
I might have missed it. I don't think anyone brought this up. Having them wear headphones so that others around can only hear one side of the conversation. I think that's really helpful to make kids more comfortable that I work with.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. I've often had trouble though when, at least for me and then also for the clients, when they switch it from having a headphone jack in there, and then like sometimes it messes up the phone, or if it's like connecting on Bluetooth to the car or something like that. But yeah, if you can find like a system, you're like, okay, just do that every time that we meet. That's a great way to go. Other thoughts? All right. So just want to take a quick poll from folks. I'm just wondering if this is helpful. We've had about, what is it, Sophia, like 4 of these? And just wondering if it's helpful. Today was little bit smaller numbers than we've had in the past. So we don't want to extrapolate too much from that, but just wondering if this is helpful and you guys feel like it'll be good to keep this going. So if you can just vote on that real quick. I think we can publish. Yay. Well, that's good to see. So I think, yeah, we'll keep these going. For the most part, we've been, I guess, trying to think about how we can diversify the topics and address issues that are pertinent to folks out there. Seems like most of the time folks were wanting to have sessions on how to connect with clients and how to engage them in therapy in this time. But yeah, I don't know if you all have any thoughts or ideas on potential topics. I'd love for you to share it with us either now or in the chat or later on in the learning the website. Go ahead, Linda.
Oh, I was just going to say, maybe connected with that is formality and informality. There seems to be a difference on Zoom a little bit. It feels a little more familiar to me and some of my coworkers than when we're in a group in a room together. Somehow those lines between facilitator and group seem a little more blurred on Zoom, like we're more on an equal level. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's good, and it might, in some situations, maybe be less good. I don't know. Just curious, whether others are experiencing that and how that's been addressed or not.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Definitely had a lot more of my clients calling me amigo lately because we're texting back and forth, and then we video chat like maybe they do with their families. I think it can get blurred. All right, well, if you all have any suggestions, please let us know either by posting on the network. If anyone's not a member of the network, Sophia, if you can put the website up there for folks, you just go on there and set up an account. And that's how you stay in touch with all of our programming, like today's session. We have monthly webinars. We have the learning cohort that I mentioned that Jim is in, Jenny participated in before. Rachel will be in, Ismail has been in. But yeah, if you guys want to stay in touch with us, and it's a great place also to just continue these conversations. You can post on there, ask a question, get support, and really just join. We have we must be close to 800 at this point. Yeah. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you for your input to the conversation. And yeah, just keep your eyes and ears peeled. We will likely have another one. And probably in about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we'll see where we're at and try to host another one of these. All right. I think with that, we'll say thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.